and we'll get started. The agenda this week is a little bit changed, but basically the same. There was no new news from Patrick this week during our conference call. He didn't have anything to report, and I didn't have anything to report. We did talk about the upgrades and how they were going along. So far, there are still dates that are available, as far as I know, in July for an upgrade. So if you haven't upgraded yet, please schedule your upgrade as soon as possible. Keep in mind that the reason that we're encouraging you to do this right now is because with our contract with LibLine, they agreed to support 2 versions back. 5.18 is essentially 3 versions back. Those that are on 5.20 are okay for a while. A week or so ago, Patrick did say that they were looking at 6.2 possibly being ready to come out in August or September. September is probably more likely. So there is a need for you to keep your version up to date in compliance with contracts. Okay, I'm not going to say anything more about that because we've been over that over and over and over again. So I did again identify that Hartford, yeah, and that I need to, because I have here production URLs will be this library code bibliovation.com. I asked Patrick about that, and he told me that they made the changes, that there's something with the certificate that they have to have for all of the communications, and with the new certificate that they upgraded to with this version of the software, there are some restrictions on them that were not there before. And eventually, all of the URLs for production will be librarycode.bibliovation.com. However, until that change is made on the production machine, it will still have the kohalibrary.com piece in it. So your URLs will be out of sync. The ones for the sandboxes will have the library code -sandbox.bibliovation.com. And for right now, you'll have your library code.waldo.kohalibrary.com unless your URL was set up differently with LibLine. So that's the one thing that that we tripped ourselves up with, I think, and us, I mean me and Patrick. Okay, so the between now and the end of the month, in terms of the upgrades, I'm going to get in touch with the libraries that have not yet upgraded and who have either chosen not to attend the meetings or have chosen not to look at the recordings, to make sure that they know that this is something that has to be done. As you can see, we have several that have already upgraded. We have one that is in the process of being scheduled. That's Hartford. And I've talked with Elise at the seminary, and she said that she told me that she thought they needed to get upgraded, and I told her, yes, schedule it, but I haven't seen her schedule it yet. So I know that at least 2 more are going to be upgraded soon. My guess is that they'll both choose a date after August 1st. Well, actually, Hartford is being asked if August 1st will work for them. That's not definitely confirmed yet, though. Okay, so as more libraries have upgraded to the software, there have been different situations that have been identified at different libraries, and I thought it might be a good idea if we take a little bit of time to let those who have upgraded that are on the call today to let us know what kinds of problems or bugs did they find and what kind of responses did they get from LibLime in order to help with that. Anybody who's upgraded, feel free to unmute yourself and start talking.
Hi, Becky. This is Stephen.
Hi.
So we've had all kinds of problems with circulation as a result of two changes that they've made, as far as I can tell. One is the circulation history that appears in the checkout, and that takes a good long while in some cases, depending on how extensive the circulation history is, to resolve, which means that frequently the process gets hung up and it doesn't automatically transfer from patron retrieval into the checkout. Our staff are used to being able to then immediately check out, and they don't always notice that they haven't actually checked something out just because the scanner is beeping. At least that's my theory as to why we've had a number of instances where things have not gotten checked out since the upgrade. The other problem is that although we still have the autocomplete system preference turned off, it is nevertheless on in the checkout box. And so it pulls up the patron information, and sometimes it doesn't take. It doesn't actually go ahead and open the patron. It just hangs there, and the staff have to hit enter or select the patron before it will complete. And so this is only in checkout. It isn't in search patrons, search the catalog, or check-in.
And I guess that I probably, when I do my testing, always start from patrons. So let's see.
And there it is. Now, if you were to type in your number, it will actually automatically pull you up.
Mm-hmm. I still haven't taken care of my fines. I'll have to do that. Yeah, I hadn't heard that from anyone at South Central about either of those problems, either the patron history or the searching the patron name in the checkout. And I looked back through the bug reports and I didn't see either of those. So I think that I'm going to get in touch with Heidi at South Central and ask her if they've run into those problems at all, because there's something that should have, it should have worked. I mean, you shouldn't have run into those problems because those are things that I hadn't identified, especially with the patron history. I hadn't identified that with anyone.
Yeah, one of the problems that we have is that a patron that has vast circulation history, and they had to clear out some of it, most of it, in order to have it actually come up.
That's really...
And, you know, none of that was a problem before they added that to the checkout screen. It just lived in the action logs, and so, you know, who cares? I never go into that.
Right. Well, that's something for everyone to watch out for then. The fix to that such as it is, if you have a patron that has extensive history and you get errors or it doesn't do anything for you, you'll need to identify that patron ID, that patron barcode, and let LibLime know, and then they can go in and clear out some of the history.
Yeah.
That's what's done so far for Columbia Basin, so I know that's it. Okay.
Our supervisor is also very unhappy that they've removed the last borrower from the item record.
I hadn't noticed that they did that, but I'm wondering if that's the case. That's actually not what we want to look at.
I think maybe it's something we can add back in.
I'm wondering if it's something that we could add back in. This is what they're talking about, right? Where there used to be a last number. Actually, it was down in this area, I think.
Yeah, and now you have to view checkout history, which is a nightmare in some instances.
I'll ask and find out if we use CSS in order to have that added back in, and then the libraries that want to have it display will have it displayed, and those that don't want it won't do it.
Am I remembering right? Isn't there some place where we can edit the item display, add things in and take them out?
Yes, and that is in administration, in item fields. And this is where you can move things around so that they'll display in an order that makes sense to you rather than the way that they were originally.
Oh, yeah, but it's just item fields. So this would be coming from a different table.
That'd be coming from the patrons.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
But since everything has tags now in HTML, or pretty much everything, we should be able to figure out how to get the patron name, or it's the patron name that would, the patron barcode that would display in that particular area of the item display.
Yeah.
Okay, and I see in the chat that there are a couple things. Janelle says that the reports didn't run. Stephen, didn't you have problems with reports too?
Oh yeah, they apparently had to kill a huge report that somebody was running in order to get the report server running again.
Okay. Unlike the last time when we upgraded to 5.18, I did run a list of the new schema, but I did not compare it to the last one like I had before. The schema changes were easier to track in older versions, and now they're a little bit more difficult. But I don't know if you're running into any reports that will have either field name changes or additional fields that could be used in your reports. So if you are not getting the reports that you used to run and they don't seem to be complete, enter a support center report for that, because that's something that they'll be able to tell you very quickly. Michelle is usually the one who gets those questions, and she's very good and very fast on getting back to people. So any of the reports that you're having trouble with, just let them know about, and they'll help you with upgrading them. Okay, and Sierra, you said that you had a fun one. Sometimes what I've found with upgrades that happen is that sometimes the weirdest things can go wrong and there's no reason for them. I don't know why that would be, unless when they copied over the OPAC config that they inadvertently picked up something in the digital transfer. It's when you can't tell if it's your responsibility, and especially if you can't tell what the problem is, the best thing to do is what you did, report it to the support center and they'll help you. Okay, and this, when you say the links to the new books, is that the link that you get here on the, let me get rid of this stuff on the bottom. Is that the link that you are speaking about, the one that's in the masthead? Oh, on your homepage. There is probably probably a path name that you need to change in your homepage in the underlying HTML so that it goes, so that it searches the catalog so that it will display the information back. That probably doesn't make a whole lot of sense right now, but I'll get back to you on that one, Sierra, and let you know what it needs to be. The URL, well, if you are working with the sandbox, has definitely changed, but the URL for your production site, I think, has a minor change as well. So we'll need to we'll look at that and see if that is what the problem is. Okay. Anything else?
Oh, yeah, one more thing I should mention. I'm sure you told us, but I hadn't been tracking on it. The log viewer has been essentially replaced by the event log. And so a lot of things in the log viewer, even though it's still there, really don't work because it calls old code CGI bin stuff. And the event log has some all kinds of extra goodies in it that including purging, which sounds very scary to me.
Not tried any. It's scary to me too.
Hopefully there's a permission in there that I can set to prevent anyone from purging anything, because there's some very frustrated people who might be happy to go in and purge anything they think might possibly be causing them troubles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you haven't did this, you might want to at some point. It's not something that is critical for day-to-day operations, but it just gives you another view of how the system is being used. You can run reports against this, so it's good to know that it's here. So if something really, if a portion of your collection disappears and you're not sure where it went, you might be able to identify at least what was in that portion of the collection if there was some activity on the system that coordinated with that. But it's all stuff that you would have to look up barcodes, and you would have to understand what everything was, everything displayed was telling you. So the event log, again, is something that you can access through tools. You'll also notice that right above it, there's the log viewer. And I think, like, I haven't really gone into the log viewer, but since being on 6.0, but in the log viewer, you can go in and you can essentially, if you wanted to search for a specific person to see what they were, what log entries were in there for that person, you could do this, and it says no log found. So again, I've only found this useful when I wanted to see like a bid record or something, but this is something that I very seldom use.
It's useful if you want to figure out who messed something up.
Or who paid a fine, or who didn't pay a fine, or who cleared a fine that shouldn't have been cleared. Yeah. Okay. Back over here. Anything else from anyone else who is upgraded? Okay. Okay. The next item that I have here, this particular issue deals with the pre-filter that's available in the discovery layer. This is going to take a little bit of explanation. So in the discovery layer, you will have your options of what you want to search, and you will have your enter search term box that will always show up there. Right now, I have another box in here, which is basically the pre-filter. In previous versions of the software, this was controlled by a system preference, and that system preference was, let's see, I can probably, no, it's not in this one. It's in the discovery layer manual, and I thought I had that open, but I don't see it. Anyway, it was the field, it was called something like OPAC pre-filter choice. And there were a couple of choices that you had in order to either limit by collection or by item type. And since that is, since the whole discovery layer was reworked, or the whole OPAC interface was reworked into the discovery layer, that was something that had to be modified and changed. So what used to be handled by a system preference is now in the discovery layer configuration. Okay, so actually I'm going to X out of that one. So I'm going to show you, whoa, I'm going to show you how this gets set up. Okay, not from the discovery layer itself, but from in administration, global preferences, discovery layer. After you launch the configuration, if you are interested in setting up a pre-filter, you can do so by coming down here to, sorry, I got a public masthead search. Okay, so here is the pre-filter search. And these boxes will all be unchecked in the default version that comes. If you want the pre-filter fix or the pre-filter to display, you need to check at least the first box. If you wanted to clear on the page change, you would check this. And if there are other, there's these other options that you can read about in the layer or in the manual. In the setup, you have your choice when you add a filter to either set it up by a custom or by facet. And I set this one up for facet for collection code. So the different fields that are available here is first the name that you're giving this code or this particular filter. And this filter I have found nowhere on any of the displays. What you have in the label field, collection, that is the field that actually displays. And the default value is left blank if you had a custom filter set up. This is where you would have your default value figured out. Okay, the facet means that this is used from one of the facets that's already established in your catalog. And the one that I'm using is collection. And if I don't put any collection in this next field, it will just, it won't look right when you display it. I'll just say it that way. And you can choose to have a different maximum number of entries at display. I put it at 25. If I put this at 50, because my system preference for a page display is set at 25 right now, it wouldn't work the way that I would think it would. And the display value is what is in the collection code. And as you know, in the collection codes, you set up the codes and then the display name. And what's going to display is what it finds in the collection code. Okay, this is all a very roundabout way to get to the point of what we have with the pre-filter showing. You'll also notice that there is a button that appears now that says fewer options. If I click on that, that pre-filter goes away. If I click on more options, it comes back again. If I were to do a search for something, and if I were to choose one of the collections that's there, and I do a search, if you do a search that brings back 0 results, in this case, there's nothing there, it will give you choices. It will go into the index, the Solar index, and find entries near where this particular string of letters would fall in the index. And it will bring back several different choices. Okay, so that's how it all works. The question that has arisen is when you have a pre-filter that is set in your masthead search and you enter something that brings a 0 result, and you then go and select one of the options or one of the alternatives that Solar brings back to you, do you want the collection limiter, that pre-filter limiter, to still apply to the results of choosing one of these other words? So you'll notice here it tells me I searched for Sam in a specific collection, and then it's sorted by relevance. If I click on Sammy, it's going to search, but you'll notice that that pre-filter drops out of there, and I get 27 results. Okay, let me do this search up here again with Sammy limited by ebook, and I get 4 records. which meet my search criteria better than just not having that pre-filter there. So do you understand what the question is first? Okay. So what would your, I don't know if you use pre-filters. I know that Hartford does, but their pre-filters are not set up from the discovery layer at this point. So I'm not going to show yours, Ben. So when you have the choice in a suggestion from the system, would you want the pre-filter to be considered in that next search that's done? And I'm thinking that the yeses that I'm seeing mean that you would like that pre-filter to remain as part of the search. Okay, that's what I needed to know. That question arose, and on the call that I have with Patrick and John on Tuesdays, they asked what you would all want, and I said, I don't know, I'll ask. And now that I have a sense of that, I will tell them that. This all came about because of the project that the Waldo group is working on to bring the capability of managing your own subscriptions through a portal and the InfoMart. And this is something that John came across and reported, and it's something that is important if people are doing a search for a specific type or a specific collection as one of the filters. So thank you all, that will help me. Since I was used to using the system preference in previous versions, when I went to look at this, I had to reread the part of the manual a couple of times. This is in the discovery layer manual, and if you do a search, once you get the discovery layer manual loaded, just do a search for masthead filter, and that'll take you right to the place in the documentation. It's kind of useful, especially if you have different collections that different people would use on a regular basis. It's nice to be able to do a little bit of narrowing in your search before you get the results. Okay, so I will let them know that the pre-filter should stay active. The patron load enhancement that we ordered as a new feature in the system, according to Patrick last week, the development is underway and it should be ready for testing sometime in August. I'm not sure if St. John's is going to be able to help with the testing on that, but we may be asking some other people to help. Ben, I know we've talked to you about it before, so we might want to have you do some testing for us. But that will it'll all be arranged. It won't be just dumped on you. If there's anyone else who uses Banner in particular as your export, as your business office software, you are definitely welcome to join us in the testing of this. And actually, almost any one of any academic institution that has the patron records extracted from your registrar's office basically it's handling that file that comes out of the extract that they do, and it's a way to get the patron records uploaded and applied against the database without having to have any human intervention. So it's a series of, it's not necessarily APIs, more like cron jobs that would run. And it's just a way that we would have to test whether or not it's actually going through everything correctly. So by the time we meet next time, I should have more information about this. Okay, any other questions, comments?
So in terms of additional enhancement ideas, I would definitely want an enhancement to turn off the patron circulation history that appears in the checkout. My preference is to just move that into the history tab so it doesn't load automatically when the patron is pulled up. I don't know why they put it in there in the first place. I also don't know why the checkout autocomplete system preference, when I have it set to off, no longer works properly, and I certainly would prefer that the autocomplete not happen.
Okay. It should at least be an option and should work as an option. Like I said, I'll ask Heidi what they have run into in terms of these two pieces and ask her if it's working the way that they think it should be. And if it is, I know because they're public libraries, they have lots of activity and lots of patron records, so I'm sure they would be running into the same issue. They're still in test mode, so I'm not sure if they've run into it, but I know she will definitely test it to make sure. Okay, I will ask Heidi about those and I'll get back. I'll send something back to the mailing list when Heidi responds. Okay, anything else that anybody wants to bring up? Okay, seeing that there's no more comments, actually, I should scroll down a little bit. I don't know about the Campus Cafe, but if it generates a file that's to the that can be imported into the to the patron import tool in Tools, then we can actually test with that as well. So, okay. Okay, so hopefully by the next time we meet, we'll have the feature about automatically loading patron records into the patron file available for testing. From talking with Patrick on that, just a little more information that came to mind is that because this would be cron jobs, it could be set up the way that you wanted it. So if you do patron loads normally, once at the beginning of the semester, once at the middle, and once at the end, it can be set for that so that you can get specific dates in there. I have not tried that part of it yet. I have run reports and I have scheduled a report, but I have not scheduled and emailed it to me. That just came in like right before our last meeting. So I'll work on that and see if that happens. I saw the support center report you put in about that you scheduled it, it ran, etc.
Yeah, you know, I've had any number of other problems with reports, so that kind of fell off my radar. But now that they're working again, I'll try it again.
Okay. Yeah, and I'll try it. Okay, Ben, that's, as long as LibLime agrees, it's fine by me. Okay, that's all that I've got today. I'll get back to you all on the couple of questions that Stephen asked, and have a good weekend, and we'll see you again on July 25th. Thank you all.